So inside the envelope that we sent you, you're going to get one piece of mesh. Now the mesh is 54 inches wide and it's 68 inches long. So it's more than enough to do 3 panels. Since most wind deflectors only have 2, that means you'll easily have enough mesh even if you make a mistake. The second thing you'll get is a piece of T-gasket. The reason we call it a T-gasket is because it might be a little hard to see, but it actually looks like a T. That's why we call it a T-gasket. Now, we only send you one piece of this is because most people won't use this one. They'll actually reuse the gasket that they actually have in the panel. And the reason is this one you'll have to cut to length. That one, it's already cut to the correct length. So the upside would be it's actually easier to put it back in is because it's already cut to the correct length. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the tools you're going to need. So the first one is a nice little utility knife. This is to cut the mesh once we put it inside. You're going to need a screwdriver, a number 2 Phillips, so that's the one that looks like an X, and it's the middle size, so it's the most common size. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need something to pry the T-gasket out. So either a really small screwdriver, or in this case I actually have a file that's actually quite sharp at one end. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to stick it down where the T-gasket goes together and we're going to pry it up. So I will show you each one of those, but you're going to need something to pry it up. And then the last thing you're going to need, or the second to last thing you're going to need, is you're going to need a long, ideally wood screw. And the reason is there's a bearing like this one. It's easier to see if I put it down. There's a bearing inside each side of the wind deflector that holds the 2 panels together, and we need to get this bearing out. So there's a screw that we're going to take out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to slide this wood screw in, we're going to turn it a little bit, and then we're going to pull to get that out. So the ideal one would be is you're going to get a, say, 3.5, 4 inch number 8, number 10 wood screw. So go visit a Home Depot or talk to a friend who has a really long screw. It doesn't have to be a wood screw, but it needs to be something long that we can turn into the bushing, put it at a slight angle, and then give it a pull. And then the last thing is this is a welding clamp. My suggestion would be to go on Amazon, find a kind of inexpensive one, or a Harbor Freight Tools or something like that to find one. And then what we've done with this one is we've actually applied a little bit of felt to it. And the felt is just to stop the clamp from marking the powder coating up or the paint on the tubes. This one you don't need, but it'll make your job like 3 times as easy. So you could do this mesh replacement in maybe an hour or so. If you don't, you're going to have to use your thumbs, and your thumbs are going to hurt after a while pushing all the gasket in. So there you go. That's what you're going to do. So we're going to get to our wind deflector. So one of the things you'll notice is most of you will have 2 panels. What we consider to be a bottom panel, and what we consider to be a top panel. So to replace the mesh, you have to take the 2 panels apart. I mean, I guess it's possible you could try to do it with it together. To be perfectly honest, it's going to be way more work and way harder. So it's pretty easy to take them apart, the 2 panels apart. So number 1, you're going to fold it in half. And what you're going to notice on each end is that there's a screw right here. Let me flip it around. And a screw right here. So if you look where the 2 panels come together, there's a Phillips screw right there, number 2, as I said before. So we're just going to take our Phillips screwdriver, turn those screws out, turn it around to the other side. And I got hope. Now, they don't come apart because it's not the screw. The screw holds in the bushing. This nice little guy here. That little bushing slides in there and holds the 2 panels together. So it's why we need the screw. So if we turn the screw inside, and you just kind of turn it tight, and you give it a bit of oil, it pops out. And then the 2 pieces, don't pull it too hard, but then the 2 pieces come apart. If you can't find this screw, it's the easiest thing to do is a screw because it just needs a little bit of pressure. It's not held in there, it's just in there a tiny bit. So the other thing you could possibly do is take a pair of needle nose pliers and kind of push it in, give it a turn and then pull it out. I still suggest you use the number 10, number 8 wood screw, something that has a really coarse thread to it. Again, you just kind of turn it in there a little bit, pop it out, and there you go. Then the two panels come apart. Top panel, bottom panel. If you have to do the top panel, my recommendation would be that you take off all of the brackets. And the simplest reason is, again, it's just easier because you're going to lay it down like this. You probably could do it with the brackets on too, but again, when you go to put the gasket in on this section here and this section here, it might be a little difficult. But up to you, you can see. I'm going to show you how to do the top panel mesh, and the simplest reason is because these two little pivots make it a little bit more difficult. If anything, putting the gasket in the bottom panel is easier because it's square, and away you go. This one, when you do the mesh, it gets a little bit tricky around here, and I'll show you a little trick to do that one. All good. So again, find yourself a nice little screwdriver and pry it into where the two gaskets go. You pull the T-gasket up and around, and out it comes. Now, I've heard people, they've tried to reuse this piece. Super hard to do. It's pretty much garbage now. So the trick with this one is just what you probably thought. We're going to lay the piece of mesh down. We're not going to cut it beforehand. It's actually good to have a little bit of extra weight on it. It's easier to put down. And then we're basically just going to start. We're going to start by putting the gasket down at about, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches wide. Then we're going to basically work our way along one side. We'll work our way along the other side, trying to get it as flat and without as many wrinkles as possible. If it's a big wrinkle, if there's a big line in it, we're going to try and fix that. If it's a little one, once you press it all down, most of those wrinkles are going to go away. Similarly, we'll work our way down here. If you're using the original gasket, just make sure that you start with the ends together, like this. And then you're going to go find this end, the middle of the opposite side. And then you're going to start with this one and kind of put it in the middle and then work our way around. And then that way it'll more or less work out to be about the middle on the other side. So just from a clean look as opposed to having the gasket over to one side. There we go. So I'm going to put this around my neck because it's a nice easy place to keep it. We're going to go get my nice piece of mesh. So again, it is about 54 inches one way. So you'll notice that it's probably 2 or 3 inches on each side. And then if you go the other direction, it's a good 60 plus, like it's way over. So you want to make sure that you use the 50, I think it's 52 or 54. So it's just going to go over top on each side, okay? So we're going to put the mesh over on the opposite side to where you are and basically just let it hang over the table. And the reason is it actually gives it a little bit of tension, and you actually want that tension there. So you're just going to sit it there. I'm going to tell you, you're going to have about maybe 3 or 4 inches on this side, maybe 2 or 3 inches on that side. So just about that much. It's going to drop down and inside. You want that. You want a little bit of extra. Again, there's a wrinkle right here. If you can see it right there, I want to get that wrinkle out. Wrinkles aren't huge problems, so I would give you a little bit of extra one. Kind of give it to pull to the side so it's nice and flopped down. Again, we go back, put those two together. Put this one, find the middle, right? If those two are the ends together, this is the middle. I'm not going to put one sharp point right in the middle. I'm going to find the middle, and I'm going to get about 2 or 3 inches on this side, and I'm going to push it down kind of together like that. If you go down and you push in one spot, you'll have a tendency to have this big V, and it's harder to get it smooth if you do like that. So the palm of your hands are your friend. You can do it with your thumbs. Your thumbs are going to hurt after a while. So then just take the gasket and kind of put it off to each side. And then you're just going to slowly, using the palm of your hand, just insert it. Now it doesn't have to be all the way down, all the way. Like I said, there are 3 ribs to it. So because of that, you're not going to get it all down the first time anyway. So this is just more, we'll get it into place. We'll go see if there's any wrinkles or stuff like that, and away we go. So there you go. I did kind of 2 about the curve. I'll come over to the side here. And usually what I'm doing is I'm trying to pull back a little bit. So just pushing it down and inside. And what you'll notice, might be hard to see, but if you can, it's starting to get tight on this side. I'm going to go around and do the end. And then same thing, just make sure it's nice and straight there. I'm going to do a second one where I show you how to do the other one. Now, some of you go, well, Dan, it's still got a bit of a dip. It does, but I still have, it's still only on the first one here. And once you've pressed it all the way down, you'll find that it, sorry, my table's moved a little bit there. Again, just use your palm, push it down. Now, when you get to this point here, it's actually one of the little tricky ones. Just pull it back so that there's no wrinkle in there. And again, once you push down, it's this. There we go. And sure enough, the gasket lines up pretty close. Now, what you'll find is in this case, it actually overlaps a little bit. That's okay. That looks pretty good overall. It's pretty close. So what you're going to do is you might back it off a little bit and then push the 2 gaskets together. Now you have this one piece that sets up a little bit, but what you can probably do is probably force that one in, and you'll be surprised you'll be able to work it into the gasket if it's long. Now similarly, this one's not being quite so. And there you go. Now you might have to work those guys in a little bit. Again, push down with your hands. What it'll do is it pushing again, because they're tight, it'll almost disappear. So again, there's lots of gasket we have to push down, but that's okay. So again, overall, not too bad. Gasket. So I'm actually going to push it all down for you. I'm going to get you, I'll show you the panel is about as good as it's going to get. And then I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to go get my other gasket and I'll show you how to cut it if necessary. So again, there are 3 ribs on inside this tube. There's 3 ribs on this side, there's 3 ribs on the other side, and then the gasket also has 3 ribs. So you'll be able to easily push down the first one, the second one, but what you'll find is it sits up about, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch or 1 or 2 millimeters. And to get that one down, you're really going to have to push with your fingers. Now again, the tool that I would recommend is this guy here. It's a welding clamp that I've put felt on. And you basically just set it to the correct height and you just lift up and it'll push 3 or 4 inches down at a time, and you'll be able to walk your way around with this guy here and have it done in mere minutes. So again, if you just kind of get it set, and yeah. And again, if you don't like it, the upside would be that you're going to be able to take this apart 2 or 3 times. And again, you can see that this one's in. I'll work this guy around here too. And you can almost feel when it goes down. Now, the one thing I do notice is right here, I got a little bit of a dip. Depending on if you're a perfectionist or not, once you do the other side, this will almost all go away. If you did want to fix it though, it might be hard for you guys to see the dip. It's actually right there and right here. Now again, it hasn't been pressed down. There's actually some still to press down right here and right here. I would argue it's probably going to go away. If you did want to make an improvement on that one, again, just go back, get your piece up a little bit, pull the gasket a little bit towards you. Push down. Again, just kind of lift up. The trick is to lift it up where you don't want it so you can get it all the way out. And then you can kind of just pull it so there's not much of a gap there, or not much of a wrinkle. And there you go. So similarly, if there was a wrinkle right here, just go pry this up a little bit, give it a little pull on this side to where it's almost gone. Then you start to push down again, and all those wrinkles, most of those wrinkles will disappear. So before you cut it, your life is good. I can look at this one and go, it's going to turn out pretty good. Yeah, I also do a fair amount of these. So, yeah, there you go. So, if you don't want to buy, it's probably $20, $25, a little bit of felt. If you don't want to buy this one, what you could do is you could go buy it from Harbor Freight Tools or someplace like that. Not sure if Home Depot sells them, but they might. And then the top part, you actually don't have to put the felt on, but you could just basically put a piece of tape the felt on there, so don't put the sticky on there. Go get some felt or go get a piece of foam or something like that. And the reason is so it doesn't mark the bottom of the tube, right? So the top part is going to go into the gasket. It's no problem. You actually don't need this one as much, but it's the bottom one that you'll leave little marks all the way around. All right, so again, you're just going to set this one up. Really fast and easy. I probably wouldn't cut that until you're really sure that you got it all, because at least you could back it out if you don't like it, but you can also go along and cut it. There we go. Just about done here. Now again, if you did want to just push these down with your fingers, it is possible to do it, but your fingers are going to hurt. So one thing you could do is, get it mostly down, push for 20 minutes, right? Do it for 10 or 15 minutes, go away, get a drink, water or something like that, and then come back and push the rest down when your fingers stop hurting. All right. So normally what I would say is once you get it to this part, we're going to cut it. We're probably going to leave about 2 or 3 inches on the other side. Now normally what I would do is I'd probably have a pair of scissors just to cut, but I didn't bring any up with me, but you can just use your utility knife. Now is to cut all this extra gasket off. Sorry, extra mesh off. So what I'm going to tell you to do is you're going to pull up. Because this gasket sits in like this, all right? What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and slide our knife up and inside the gasket, and then we're going to cut sorry, I can't see it. We're going to slide the knife up and inside, and it cuts like this. So then the mesh will be cut up underneath. So the mesh will go here, underneath to the other side, and then we're going to cut it, right? So ideally, you want this as down as far as you can, and it'll make a nice clean cut. You just basically, again, the knife can slide underneath the gasket and you just pull. So normally I would do it on this side, but it's actually easier for you guys to see if I do it on the upside. So you're gonna take a piece, you're gonna pull up, and there'll be enough room to stick your knife in, right? There'll be lots of room in there. You just kind of pull up, and then you just run your knife along, and you'll end up with a nice finished product. So there you go. So the other trick is just basically don't try and do like 10 inches at a time. Do 2 or 3, right? So you kind of pull up so you can insert the knife underneath. You can let it go, but always have a little bit of pull with your other hand on the mesh, just so it's tight. I've ran into where the 2 gaskets come together. So again, you pull up. And obviously better if you have a sharp knife. It'll make an easier one. There's generally enough room to get around, even if you're using a utility knife like this. The thing we also use sometimes is we sometimes use little hobby knives. So if you're cutting like balsa wood or you do models and stuff like that. I know somebody does models. Ask to borrow a hobby knife. And the hobby knives are really nice because they're nice and thin. They get in there and it's really easy to use, especially around the corners here. All right, we're on the home stretch. Now, again, that one pulled up a little bit. If you wanted to put glue in, now you could actually pull this up a little bit, just a little bit, not too much. Stick your glue in there, stick it back down. In general, you probably don't need it. This one was up. I didn't have the ribs all the way down. You can actually, it's really hard to see, but you can actually, I can stick my knife in here. Here I can't without pulling it up. This rib wasn't down all the way. So my gasket wasn't down. And then just cut the last little bit. Now be careful around on the tube. Obviously, if you cut, you can maybe leave a mark on yours. So in general, being a little slower is a good thing. There you go. One panel. So not too bad. Again, I got half a dozen places around that I don't have the gasket all the way down. That's okay though. Again, either buy the little clamp, put something on the bottom. I mean, you probably could do this with a pair of pliers. The problem is the pliers are going to beat this actually isn't paint, it's called powder coating. It looks like paint, and it'll beat the powder coating up, so then you'll just have marks all the way around. Maybe just put something on the bottom. Again, you can do it with your fingers. You've got strong little fingers. Mine would be if you can do it on one side, and then it kind of works. It kind of just goes in a little bit at a time. Oh! You can try using the palm of your hand too. Again, it's a fair amount of push to get it all in there. But there you go. All right, so I'm going to take this one out, and then I'm going to put another piece in, and I'm going to use, I'm not sure, my other gasket, my longer gasket, so I can show you how to cut it. For those of you who are putting the gasket back in, that's my suggestion. It's nice and easy. It's already cut. Life is all good. Now again, if the gasket is really old or broken or whatever, it usually doesn't happen. The gasket lasts like at least 15 years. So in general, I would use the existing gasket. But if you don't want to, you can use the new gasket, and I will show you. Okay, so we're going to do this one more time. This is the gasket that we would send to you in the mesh kit. I'm going to show you we can get another panel. Truthfully, if you're doing the top one, you can almost get 4 of them out of it. So I'm not sure why we'd need 4, but again, just in case there's a mistake, just in case you don't like the look of it, you can probably go back, take it back out, put another one in, put it down, and away you go. So as long as you don't glue the ends, all good. So again, find yourself a nice little screwdriver and pry it into where the 2 gaskets go. You pull the T-gasket up and around, and out it comes. Now, I've heard people, they've tried to reuse this piece. Super hard to do. It's pretty much garbage now. I'm not going to use this one again. but I am going to use this guy. So this one is more than long enough for yours. In general, we send you the longest piece. You'll probably have 6 to 8 inches extra of the gasket, so there'll be lots of it. Again, the knife is just for cutting. And then the trick with this one is to cut the gasket straight. We're going to put it down. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to put the gasket all the way in on one side. We're going to cut it if it's not straight. So in this case, we're going to come along and we're going to cut it so it's nice and straight. I'm going to push one side down and in. I'm going to come back around with the other one. And I actually don't want to make it equal length. I want it just a little hair over. So maybe 2 millimeters or like a 32ndth of an inch, right? So just, about that much overlap. So it's nice and tight against it. Again, you line it up and we cut it so you get a nice straight end. So it goes down and inside. And if it doesn't cut straight, the upside would be you got a little bit extra, so you can cut it again. So you get a nice straight one. And then you're going to push it, and we're going to push them down and together. And even if there's a little bit of a bubble right here, like say you're like, Dan, it looks like that. As I said, there's quite often enough room that you can basically pry this back. Even if there's a little bit, it bends out a little bit, you can pry it back and push it down, and it'll make this gap fit nice and tight. All right, so let's go. All right, so again, find the 54-inch way. So now that you've cut it, there's one side that's going to be about 2 or 3 total, probably, maybe, 2 inches on each side. You get it like that. It flops down and inside. You give it a nice little breath to make sure there's no big wrinkles. There's actually one right there. Groove like that, dips down. You're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to put the 2 ends of the gaskets together. We're going to go to the middle on the other side. We're going to take about 2-3 inches and we're going to put it on the opposite side of you. And instead of putting one point down, we're going to put basically 2 or 3 inches down, kind of with both thumbs now, and just give it a push. Again, if you do one, you'll get a big line one way or the other way. It's just harder to get the wrinkle out. It's not that big a deal. Again, mine would be next, just with your hand, just press the gasket into place. And even if you go, oh, you know what, it dips down, it isn't very tight, Dan, don't worry about it. There's quite often, sometimes you get a little wrinkle in there. In this case, there wasn't. I'll show you. But like I said, if there is a wrinkle, say there is a wrinkle right here, you can reach up, you pull the mesh back a little bit, and then you kind of use your hand to push it down. Again, I would actually probably say it's easier to work off the side a little bit. So just push your hand down. Again, you're not trying to get it all the way down or 2 or 3 down. You're just getting the gasket to stay in place. You turn the corner and then down the other side. And like I said, there is a fair amount of extra that we give you on purpose. Now there's a little wrinkle here. I probably wouldn't touch that one. I'm going to make a big one on purpose. I'm going to basically I'm going to try and do that. Right? Like there's a big, this one here, it's probably too much. Again, you might just reach in, pull the gasket up, give it not too much, just give it a little pull till that gasket helps. You might even get someone to pull it with you, but you don't want it too tight. You just want it nice and soft because it'll get tight once you push it all the way down. Again, maybe just go around with the palm of your hand, push it all down. And there you go. So again, you could go and push most of it down now, all the way around. Ignore these guys for now. And you get a nice panel that's that's flat. There's no wrinkles in there. Again, I haven't gotten it all down, but pretty close. We're gonna take mine. So with these ones, I'd always say give yourself a little extra, which basically means take one of them, kind of pick the middle, lift it up. Make sure you're not too close to the mesh. You wouldn't want to cut it now that you're there. And just make sure that you get this nice and straight. You get a nice straight cut. So just kind of point your scissors down, give it a cut. That's pretty straight. And then I would go along and push it down, and I'd make sure that this piece is as down and as tight as I can get it. So you got one side done. And again, I wouldn't try and line up my scissors to get it exactly. I would probably cut it. I'm going to cut it maybe at a millimeter or two this way, or a 32nd of an inch. So, you know, just the thickness of a quarter, maybe 2/4. That's how much I'd want extra. Because I'm going to cut it here, and I'll even show you. I've got it more than 2/4. I probably got it 3/4. And I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it nice and straight. It overlaps it by a lot. You're like, oh, you cut it wrong. It's like, no, I'm going to back it up here a little bit. I am going to push this end down. So this piece is up in the air like this. I'm going to push this end down. And you can see that the two gaskets are pretty close together. And you're like, wait, Dan, that's way too much. But I'm going to be able to force this little gasket in there just like that. So it's good to have a little bit, and then what happens is once you push it down, that line almost disappears. So there you go. So that's the trick with the gasket we send you. Do the same thing, leave it, get it all down so they're all kind of 1 and 2 ribs down. Bring it here, cut one side so it's nice and straight, put it in. Got it down so I'm not even sure I can get it out. I got it in there. And when this stuff's in there, by the way, when you get it down all 3, it does not want to come back out. There we go. Okay. So again, the trick is cut this side, but make sure that this piece sticks over a good 2/4 in thickness. So maybe that big, right? And then when you push it down, just start with this end. Don't worry that this one's up in the air. Push it so those two are nice and close together. And you'll be able to kind of work that rib back in there. And what will happen is the gasket will push itself back that way and a little bit this way. And away you go. 2 panels. So now we just cut the mesh again, and we are good to go. Now when you finish putting the mesh in your panel again, you're going to need to put the 2 panels back together. Set that guy down. So my little pivots go in each one of those little slots. They go down. And then you're going to slide, again, the bushing in through the hole. You kind of got to line up the second hole. So I'm going to take it down and look at it because it's going to be difficult to do it on camera. But I'm going to take it and I'm going to line it up so I can see all the way through. Pushes and then slides right down. If it's not really flush to the inside, just give it a little push. Away you go. Put the screw back in and away you go. Now the one thing you will be able to do is you'll be able to, how much tension there is between the 2 panels. There's a little lock in here that holds the panels together, so holds the top panel up. So if you want it a little stronger, you just tighten the screw. If you want it a little bit looser, you do the opposite. So again, you just look down the middle. Take your little bushing, you slide it, get it lined up, slide it in there. Like this one, there's a little bit of push to it. It's not flush. Just give it a little push and it pops down and in. And now, even without the screw, it's not coming out. It is together. The screw is just to make sure that it doesn't wiggle loose. And give it a little tension for the top. So again, just turn that guy. And then you're done. And then, like I said, when you tilt it up, how much tension it has, does it stay there by itself? Here, it's going to lock into place. But if you like it a little bit looser, this one's quite soft, quite loose. So you could certainly make this one a little tighter if you wish.